Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. The 71 Highboy is back on the lift. We have some leaking driveline components we need to fix, so let's go dig into it. All right guys, like I said, the 71 Highboy is back on the lift after we did the interior cleaning and the cosmetic upgrades like the grill inserts we put back together. We saw that on the last episode, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. But today we're underneath the truck. We're going to be doing some driveline upgrades or just general maintenance. The biggest thing we're going to be doing is these wiper seals here on the Dana 44 axle. So these are closed knuckle axles. So they have these balls here on the end, and they have the knuckles here that seal up against these balls, and they are basically a wet bearing and U-joint assembly in here. So more modern stuff generally have what is called an open knuckle design, where it's open and they have ball joints top and bottom, or even kingpins like a Dana 60, and the U-joint is exposed. Now these are enclosed into this ball and socket assembly, and it's called a closed knuckle. This is kind of more the old school way of doing things, the way they did it before they really got the open knuckle stuff figured out. Now this stuff is separate from the pumpkin in here, the differential. So the differential still has the banjo seals that are up here. So this tube is not open to the differential here. And everything in here is different. It's not like a gear oil. It's a grease gear oil mixture. It's kind of, I don't know what to say. It's not, it's runny, kind of like grease, but it's also sticky, or it's runny like oil, but it's also sticky like grease. So it's kind of a mixture of the two. And what I use, there's other things you can use. I know there's several things you can use, but what I get is closed knuckle lubricant from Torque King. So it comes in these tubes here. You use like a caulking gun to put it in. We'll be putting this in later, and I'll show you guys how that works. But basically with the Highboy trucks, there was two different styles of these front axles. There was a 44 and a 44 HD. This is the standard 44. The weight rating on this axle is 3,300 pounds, and the HD is 3,500 pounds. And basically the only difference is the balls on the end, the sockets are much bigger, and the hub out here is a lot different design. It has external bolts, and they're a lot bigger than this. So if you're wondering which one you have, the easiest way to tell is the external hub design, where this one has a internal snap ring, and that's what holds the lockout in place, or in place. The big HD axles have a big bolt pattern here with some 3/8 bolts that hold the actual lockout hub in place. So just doing a quick glance, that's the way to check it. So whenever I had this thing on the lift last, we were doing inspections, and this thing actually has the grease in the hubs. There's still hub closed knuckle lubricant in the hubs. As you can see here, they're all greasy. That's very common. And I mainly checked this one, and everything still looked pretty good. The grease level was way up here, so we still had quite a bit of grease, so I wasn't even going to mess with these. But then I went over here, and if you see here, you notice that a lot of the grease or closed knuckle lubricant is leaking out right there. So the seal is compromised back here. So once I saw that, I went ahead and got some replacements coming, which is this right here. Now these small ball, as I like to call them, or just the standard Dana 44, these are a lot easier to come by, and they are a lot cheaper. I think it's because they use the same ones on some Jeeps or something, so they make a lot more of them. If you want the part number, right there is the part number of what I got. These are pretty reasonable. I got this from Summit Racing. They had them in stock, and basically we're going to be replacing those. Now the Dana 44 HD ones are a lot more expensive. I get mine from Torque King, but I did find a part number that works for these. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I'll have it down here in this video, so you can check it out if you can find those for sale. But they are more expensive than these small ones. But we're going to be tackling these. And we also have a problem with our Dana 24 transfer case. I have the oil drained out of this thing because it was leaking all the oil out, and I didn't want to lose all my brand new gear oil I put in here. And the front output shaft is leaking. So oddly enough, this thing was not leaking when I serviced it, because I drained the oil out of this and thing and serviced it. It wasn't leaking the old oil, and I put new oil in it and it started leaking. So I don't know what that is about. I don't know if it was because it was below the seal, but there was quite a bit of oil that drained out. I didn't measure it. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get after those knuckle seals. We're going to do those first. And first step is to get all the old ones out and see what we're working with. So I'm going to get after it. All right, I have the seal almost ready to take out. I wanted to kind of describe what it is before we start taking apart so you know what we're working with here. There's basically 3 parts to these seals. There's the outer piece that is basically just a plate that sandwiches all 3 pieces together. And then there is a felt that goes in under that, and I have those over here. I have them soaking in some gear oil. The instructions for these say to place gear oil in them. Now, I don't get crazy with the gear oil because when I have in the past, you just squeeze it out basically, and you make a mess on the floor. So I kind of just loosely put gear oil on it, and I mainly focus on the outer edge here where it's going to be rubbing on that ball and on the axle. I think just to keep the friction down when you first get these things going. And then the third piece is this rubber seal here, and this is what actually does the majority of the sealing on the ball here, and it goes underneath all these pieces, and there's a recessed spot that it goes in there. We'll show you that when I get it all apart. But first we got to get rid of the old ones. So get the camera set up here, and we'll buzz the old ones off. Now the kit for the big knuckle, the 12 bolt gaskets, it comes with new hardware. This cheaper small kit does not come with new hardware, so I'm saving this hardware. Alright, I have all the bolts out. Alright, there's the top piece with the felt. And then the old piece there. So these aren't in terrible shape. I was wondering if I could see why it's leaking down here. Well, I don't see anything jumping out at me as to why it's leaking. And this thing's going to run all the grease that's in there out. But there you can kind of see the consistency of it. As it runs out there, we'll be replacing that. So we'll get nice new grease in there. I was wondering if you can see the U-joint. You can't really, but back up in there, the U-joint is in there. We'll let that kind of run out, and we'll clean this up a little bit, and we'll inspect this seal. All right, well, I've done a little bit of digging, and to see if I could try to figure out why we're leaking here. Have the old seal out of here, and the bottom of it would have been like right here. If you can see, there's a little bit of wear right there, and I'm not quite sure that I could find anything on here as to why it's leaking. There are some ridges that are worn into the rubber seal right here, and it's kind of a little bit hard. So I think all of that contributed with the, there's some wear marks on the ball here as well, those ribs where it was leaking. So I think as a mixture of all of that, the hard seal and the grooves that are worn in the seal to match the ribs on here, I think made the ball want to leak a little bit. So our new one may not exactly seal up as nice as we would like it to be, but we'll give it a shot. We'll at least have some nice new rubber to put in there, and we'll see if we can get it the best we can. Now, if you notice up here, there is a bearing right there, and that's the top, your top knuckle bearing, and it is not submerged in oil because you fill it to this plug right here, if you notice that. And in the Ford manual, they say to run these things, engage the front drive axle for at least 1 mile oh, I can't remember. Maybe it's 1 mile every month. I can't remember now that I decided I was going to tell you guys. I think maybe it's 1 mile every month, or just, you know, just periodically. And that's basically to get that axle spinning and to sling that grease up here and lubricate your top bearing. Because if you never run your front drive axle, this bearing is going to be dry, and it'll cause premature wear and harder to steer. So that's just kind of a little tidbit of information for you. So we'll get this new seal put in here and see if we can get this thing to stop leaking. All right, these seals, they go in. You see they have the metal piece right there and then the rubber piece on the outside. This goes on the outside. And getting them on there is kind of tricky. You split them and then kind of get them on there. It's hard to do it without like worrying you're going to mess up the gasket, but they will bend back into shape. So I got it slid over the tube there. I can get it started. Oh, I'm hitting the stop. Let me get the axle straight. All right, there we go. And bend it back into place. This stuff's a mess. And I always like to put the split. I put the split at the top because you want that solid piece down there at the bottom. Once you kind of get it snapped into place, it's not going to want to stay until you get the pieces in there. But you want it to kind of be kind of in the right spot like that right there. You see that? Now it's not going to want to stay, but maybe it'll stay long enough for us to get it started. All right, so next step is our felts. Now they come in one piece. You have to cut these, and if you see it's flat on the top and bottom there, those correlate with the flat spots on the knuckle here, so that's the way it goes. And I always like to go at a different location than you put your split on your gasket there. And I don't think it really matters, but just as long as it's not in the same spot, it just makes me feel better. So you're gonna cut these in half with like a pair of scissors or something. Get them over the knuckle there and lined up with the flat spots on the top and bottom of the knuckle. And then these are pretty self-explanatory, but they do have this lip. You know, obviously that needs to be pointed out and not in. We'll see if we can get a couple of bolts started. And one of my bolts just went in the trash can. That's nice. All right, got all the bolts in. Now, I did try to find some torque specs to these. I didn't find any. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but basically I am more concerned with getting these bolted down consistently, you know, and kind of not cranking on one too much, basically, and making sure that your rubber seal is in place before you really crank them down. Now it's not a very big bolt. What are these, like 5/16 bolts? So if you did torque them down like 15 to 20 foot-pounds probably, that might even be too much. I'm not really sure. Basically, I just tighten them up. Best I could tell you. And as I tighten this up, you can see the gear oil start to squeeze out of this. So like I said, you don't have to get crazy with the gear oil on that felt. You see it running out there. Keep you from making as big of a mess. Basically, I just go until you can tell that everything kind of bottomed out. It seems like it tightens up for a long time, but that's because you're getting everything sandwiched together. And there's a little bit of tension there, so it kind of squeezes everything together for quite a while. But once they stop getting tight, then you can, you know that you're well on your way there. So let me get you up there and see that gear oil is starting to run out of there. And I can run all the way in both directions, and we don't have any spots to feel like we're binding up, you know, if that rubber gasket somehow got out of place and everything. So next step is going to be to clean everything up, and we got to top it off with that closed knuckle lubricant. All right, let's get this thing cleaned up. I mean, this is kind of a not very important step, because this thing's dirty. You know, if it was a pristine, clean axle here, that'd be a different story, but this will at least tell us if we fixed our leak. Make sure we get all the old closed knuckle lubricant stuff off of there, so we can see if any more is leaking out of there once you fill it up. That should get the job done. All right, and here is the lubricant. Got my caulk gun here to get it put in, and they have the instructions on here, which is pretty nice. And it says this is a high quality rust inhibitor, dark brown lithium based extreme pressure semi-flowable grease with good water resistance and long life. This is the perfect lube for using in all closed knuckle axles to lubricate axle U-joints and knuckle bearings. Contains approximately 11 fluid ounces. Use about 6 for the 8-bolt knuckle seals is what we have here, and use about 16 for the 12-bolt seals. So that's really nice of them. It takes 6 ounces for this axle, and they give us 11. But I did get extra because I need some for my ranch truck. So we have enough to do the whole axle. Get the end cut off here and put in here. Now I have the tube I have the tube marked for halfway right here, and that'll just kind of give me a guide to know when I'm close to being full. So I'll go to that mark, and then we got to give 1 more ounce, so I'll give it a couple more pumps. We are just about there. It doesn't take long. Right there's half. So let's do 1, 2. Let's see where we're at. Here's what it looks like. Well, it's just full there to the plug, so we're going to call that good, since we gave it pretty much what they called for. Probably smart to run it for a bit with the axle in gear, and then check your fluid level, or your grease level, I guess you should say. So basically, once we get this plug back in, we are done. So that is pretty easy. So there is a start to finish closed knuckle seal replacement. So we have our new grease in there, and we're not leaving a trail right there anymore. So mission accomplished. Now we got the other side to tackle. I'm gonna go knock that out. Alright guys, well I have the yoke and the old seal out of there. This thing fought me. Sometimes you can get lucky and just tap them out of there, but there was some corrosion in here in the splines, and it was hanging on there pretty good, so I had to get the pullers out, and it came out finally. And same thing with the seal. It had been in there for a long time. It might have been the original, I don't really know, but finally got underneath that seal and got it popped out of there. Now you can take this bearing retainer plate off and then take this to the bench and knock that seal out on the bench from the back. It's a lot easier, but I didn't have one of these gaskets, and you're pretty much guaranteed to ruin the gasket when you take this bearing retainer off. And I didn't want to have to mess with making a new one and all of that and trying to make sure everything here gets sealed up. So I just fought the seal for a little bit longer, and it finally popped out of there. Speaking of seal, if you guys want to know the part number, it's a national part number. What was that? 470898. So this for a Dana 24 input and output. It might even be for the, well, I know it's for the outputs. I'm not sure on the input. I think it might be the same, but I'm not sure. But I was kind of worried because it looks a little bit different than the original, but it does fit in there and it does fit in the yoke. So I have a big socket here for my seal driver, so we can get it in there all nice and even. There we go, that should be good. I'm going to lubricate up these splines so maybe it'll drive in easier. It's still probably going to go in hard, but just the way it goes. Got it started. All right, now if you are hammering those things on, don't get carried away with the hammer. You don't want to deform the tabs here that your U-bolt straps go in. Go ahead and lubricate those threads. Go ahead and get that nut tightened back up. Now you don't have to get too crazy with this. I can't remember the torque spec. It's something like 100 pounds or something like that. I don't know it exactly. Basically when it bottoms out, then you have to line up that cotter pin hole, if I can get it located. I need to go a little bit tighter. There we go. You can't really torque something that you have to line up a cotter pin hole on there, so I don't think you have to get too crazy with it, since it just bottoms up to a shoulder and then you got a cotter pin to keep it from getting loose. It's not like a wheel bearing or something where you're setting bearings. All right, got a new cotter pin for this. Once we get that in, we will be done. All right, I'm gonna get these things tightened back up, and we will be officially done after we top off the gear oil in the transfer case, so don't forget that step. Well, I finished buttoning everything up after that output shaft seal replacement, and thought I would just go take this thing for a test drive. I've only put a few miles on it. Let's put some few more on it this evening and see how it does. And we had some problems. So I got several miles into my test drive, and the thing started overheating on me and blowing water out of the overflow hose. And we ended up having to tow the thing back to the shop. Whenever I had the hood up and I was diagnosing in here, the top of the radiator was hot and the bottom of it was cold. So that tells me that the radiator is plugged up. Now when I put this thing together, or when I pulled the radiator to put it together, it had a bunch of stuff in it, and I had flushed it a bunch and a bunch. I don't know if you can see in there, but the radiator is plumb full of a bunch of junk. Now, you know, the engine shouldn't have came from the engine, because it was all steel sealed up, and I flushed it out anyway when I put those freeze plugs in it. The only place it could have came from is the heater core, which would be kind of odd because there's a bunch of rat droppings and stuff in there. I'm not sure the rats would climb up into a heater hose and get, I don't know. But the other option is I didn't flush the radiator very good, and there was like still a package of stuff in the corner of the radiator tank that I didn't get out, which is probably more than likely what happened. So instead of trying to flush this thing out again and risk the same thing happening again, I went to my part storage and got me another Highboy radiator. And hopefully this one's good. It's been rebuilt at some point. It has a tag on it right there from American Radiator. And it looks like they fixed the end here. So, and the inside looks really clean. I went ahead and flushed it out to make sure there's nothing in there. But I'm going to throw this radiator in it, and pretty much we will be done with this truck. I still got to figure out the seat situation. I haven't got that figured out yet, and my seat cover's not here. But you know, that's just finding a good seat, throwing it in there, and putting that seat cover on it. So I think the next time you guys see this truck, it'll be when I sell it. I'm thinking, I've had a lot of people message me and are interested in this truck, and I do appreciate that. I generally don't sell trucks like that with, you know, somebody messaging me and wanting to know the price and wanting to buy it. I usually try to sell stuff with a listing and give it, put it out to the public so everybody has a chance, you know, not doing like an under the table deal unless it's like selling it to a buddy or something. So, and another thing is I'm terrible at getting an asking price on something like this. I generally value them too low. And when I list something for sale, they sell within like the first 30 minutes. And then, you know, when you're trying to make a living off of this, you kind of kick yourself because you're leaving money on the table. So what I think I'm going to try to do with this truck is I'm going to do a bring a trailer auction. I've had really good luck with that in the past. Typically, I sell my nicer stuff on bring a trailer. But, I mean, Highboys are getting kind of valuable and getting up there in collector tier of stuff, even one in this condition. So I'm going to give it a shot. So I gotta get a bunch of pictures taken so I can submit to bring a trailer, and then we'll even see if they even accept it. They may not even accept it. But I'll be doing a no reserve bring a trailer auction on this thing in the future. Now that might take several months for everything to happen, but I'll keep you guys updated on this, and I'll be sure making a bring a trailer overview video for it when that time comes. So you'll be seeing that, so you're not going to miss the auction. But I know some people don't like auctions, and I understand why. But I think for me, it works the best because then I'm not setting the price. The buyers get to set the price and tell me what they think it's worth. And we'll get this thing to a new home. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope the wiper seal replacement and that output shaft seal replacement helped you guys. If you have one of these Highboys, you need to do some of that kind of work and gets you the confidence to go out and tackle some work on your old truck and get it back on the road. So if you guys want to see more content like this, hit subscribe so you can see more. Give me a thumbs up if you like this truck. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.